All right, listen. Last night was huge for football fans, but it was also huge for those of us who are hip-hop fans and who tuned in to watch the Super Bowl halftime show. Today on Commotion, we're asking, what kind of chord did Kendrick Lamar's performance strike with his biggest audience ever? I'm Rad Simonpillai, filling in for Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This is Commotion. Okay, so last night, millions of football fans around the world tuned in to watch the Philadelphia Eagles trounce all over Kansas City to become this year's NFL champions. But it was also a big night for this champ right here.
Mr. Lamar, do you really know how to play the game? Then tighten up!
Nobody pray for me. It been a day for me. Yeah. I remember syrup, sour, kiss and crime allowances. Vanessa known for some counterfeit. Now I'm counting this.
That's Kendrick Lamar with a fiery intro from actor Samuel L. Jackson performing Humble during his Super Bowl halftime show last night. Kendrick Lamar became the first solo rapper to headline this event, and many saw this performance as the final nail in the coffin for his long-standing feud with Drake. Pablo The Don, Matt Amha, and Marlon Palmer, y'all were watching it. Y'all are here. Hello.
What's up?
Hey, man, thanks for having us.
Thanks for being here. Welcome back to Commotion. Okay, look, Pablo, I'll start with you. Like, overall, how did you feel about the halftime show performance?
I mean, I thought it was great. I thought it was excellent. I thought it gave us what we wanted, thought we were going to get, but at the same time gave us a little bit something different, a little bit more than what people I think were looking at. I don't think it was all about just the one moment, just the feud. I think it was such a big commentary considering the state of America politically, economically. It was such a huge moment, and I think it was the perfect person. As he said, the revolution will be televised. You picked the right time, but the wrong guy. Perfect person to kind of kick off this new era of the United States of America, to be honest.
The right time, wrong guy. That was the second part of the show that made me cackle out loud. The first being the treatment of the GNX as a clown car where everyone popped out. Well, Marlon, what about you? What were your thoughts on the performance?
I thought it was mid. I thought it was like, I was going to give it a safe 7, but it's a 6, realistically, out of 10. I think his mic was way too low. I think the song selection was absolutely horrible. And I think that he's focused, his own energy went up when it was time to talk to Drake. And you could feel that. It wasn't even just the audience, it was him. And that is telling to me. And I just feel like now I look at GNX differently, honestly. I think it's a project that he put out so that he could have some Super Bowl music. Because he did do the Super Bowl before. He obviously wasn't the headlining act, but he did perform a lot of the major hits that I'm pretty sure people were searching for from this performance, and he couldn't duplicate that. So he had to put out a project that could give him some upbeat tempo vibes, and he still got it wrong, in my opinion.
Wow.
But
Wow.
I feel like a lot of if you are American, you probably have a different perspective on the entire performance, I feel like.
I mean, I feel like I do. You're hurting my soul over here. Matt, are you agreeing with Marlon?
Yeah, I think I agree with parts of it. You know, like this was Kendrick saying checkmate. I think, the turn the TV off, game over, the whole thing speaks for itself. I think we should say first, like, Kendrick Lamar is probably hip hop's greatest showman. The guy knows how to produce a spectacle. That's true. I think to some of the earlier points that have been made, like the critique of America was compelling. I think Sam Jackson playing Uncle Sam, describing Kendrick in the show as too loud, too reckless, too ghetto, the red, white, and blue motifs, like the whole thing is interesting. But it kind of reminded me of what I might call Beyonce's co-optation of the Black Panther Party's legacy in 2016. And, kind of the listener can make of that what they will. I also think that to some of what Marlon was saying, some of the songs just didn't necessarily feel big enough for the moment. It felt like a halftime performance that was essentially built on the shoulders of one song, one moment, one thing, rather than a career performance that everybody could enjoy in full. If I could just say too, like this whole moment post lawsuit now, like the Grammys and now this feels to me like it again corroborates the case that Drake was making in his lawsuit. Like essentially that all these institutions conspired against him in some way to boost this record that refers to him as a violator of children, which is the thing that Kendrick doesn't feel comfortable saying anymore, right? And so every time I now hear that song, I think about Dr. Dre and Lucian Grange, the CEO at Universal Music Group, slapping five as Kendrick Lamar makes his way to the dais to collect his award for Song of the Year.
Nasty work.
Yeah, like there is this cloud of systemic interference that has now kind of spoiled the party a little bit. And Kendrick seems to confirm this yesterday. He said, yeah, they tried to rig the game. That's him confirming the case that Drake is making in his lawsuit, you know? And just very quickly, it's a shame that Lil Wayne was not given his moment in his city. That's the way that this should have gone. And I find it still hard to believe that Jay-Z, who organized all of this, wasn't able to recognize that.
Oh, he knew.
Well, I mean, have y'all seen Lil Wayne perform live? I don't know.
Yeah,
but listen,
I have seen
yeah,
some great ones.
Okay,
I've seen some great ones.
All
Yeah,
right,
me
all
too.
right. Okay, so listen, like, I mean, you basically, you know, you jumped right into it. The song you were talking about, of course, is Not Like Us, which, you know, there was a lot of questions about whether Kendrick would even perform it, and of course, he played with that in the show. He was teasing his way to that performance, and of course, you said he got his energy up. So let's have a little listen to that moment.
Oh no,
It's a cultural divide. I'ma get it on the flow.
you really about to do it?
40 acres in the mule. This is bigger than the music.
You really about to do it?
Yeah, they tried to rig the game, but you can't fake influence.
They get on it like that.
Hey, I'm tripping, I'm sliding, I'm riding through the back like bust that on a beat, bro. Beat, bro. He a freak though, man. Damn,
So that's a little bit of Kendrick performing Not Like Us and addressing exactly as Matt said, rigging the game, and then of course the energy, you know, just amping up in the stadium. Pablo, I mean, I want to know what is your reaction to that moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think he had to do it. There was no way he was going to be able to do the Super Bowl and not do it. And I think it was a set. Personally, I think it's a setup. If he doesn't do it, people are mad. If he does do it, we get the conversation we're having now, which is it's all about this one song and this one moment. So he was really in a catch-22. I think he did it the way he best could by having other elements like the video game controller being representative, talking about America imperialism, talking about the entire system, things like that. He pulled it off in the best way he feasibly could. The tease was hilarious, I thought. Having Serena come out and crip walk was probably the best moment to me, only because it's bigger than her being Drake's ex, in my opinion. If you take it back to Wimbledon when she's crip walking, the way that she got slaughtered online for doing those things, where they tried to take a moment away from her basking in her greatness, he goes, here, have another moment because I recognize you as a Compton legend, not just this man's ex. You are Serena, the greatest to ever play tennis, Williams. Here you go. And I think those are the things that make the performance fun for me. It makes it great. It's like, yes, he's saying one thing. Yes, this is a dagger to Drake. I understand that. But it's always going to be bigger than that when you're a black person in America and Kendrick Lamar is on the biggest stage possible to say these things. Is it still a performance? Yes. Is it still some sort of pushing of like some sort of co-opting of Black Pantherism? Absolutely. But like, it's still fun.
Well, listen. I mean, we're talking about this moment. Of course, I mean, you know, going back to what y'all were saying. I mean, this is the moment where the entire Super Bowl stadium screamed out A minor. Okay, like this is like a diss song has just transcended. And Matt, I want to ask you about that. Like, of course, Kendrick, like Not Like Us, it's become like not just like the biggest diss track of all time, but also like Kendrick Lamar's, you know, the biggest song in his entire career, the most poppy sing along song. How do you think that changes what changes the way rappers will approach diss tracks going forward?
I don't know. You know, I think we've just entered a new era now where it isn't really about beef in a conventional way. It's not about having actual problems with someone. It's about marketing an event. It's about a spectacle. And it's about creating an environment of gossip and spectacle and rumor and industry. And it's ultimately, you know, not only was it entertaining for us, but like a lot of people got rich off this, you know? And that's what this is now. That's what hip hop is now. I think the essence of, you know, 50 and Irv and Death Row and Bad Boy is just not in the culture anymore. And, you know, we can make of that what we will. But I think, you know, we're going to see more of that. People gossip mongering, people flinging rumor back and forth. And, you know, who knows, being friends in the background, conspiring together to turn this into a big moment. I think that's just our new reality now.
Mm-hmm. Well, Marlon, before we switch gears here, like I wanted to talk about, like, in terms of this performance, like where does Kendrick's, the first solo rapper, you know, to hold the show down, where does this performance stand in terms of like just a pantheon of Super Bowl performances?
I mean, I feel like because of the Not Like Us moment, it will have its place. But other than that, I feel like it's really forgettable. And I think that's really unfortunate given Kendrick's catalog and what he's been able to produce over the length of his career. I think last night didn't showcase his best. And I think that's what the issue is. I think we're so used to the Super Bowls being a legacy act that you expect to hear that entire lineage. And we didn't get that. We got a GNX promo show,
Yeah,
essentially. I don't even know why SZA was added, to be honest, other than he needed more
tour.
numbers and he needed more promo. So it to me, that's just, I don't know. I feel like that, if anything, it might change how the Super Bowl performance is approached. It may no longer be about your classics, but it might be about your next show or your Vegas residency that
Selling an album
and selling something, which I think is terrible for the Super Bowl because even videos from inside the stadium, majority of people were sitting down. And it seemed like the only line, not even the song, the only line they knew was A minor. So I think that is very telling. And I think that is going to be like, I can't put this above Prince. I can't put this above Destiny's Child reunion. I can't put this above Michael Jackson. I can't put this above Shakira and J-Lo. Like, those were amazing shows that showcase an entire lineage of music that we all grew up and loved. And I think that's what was missing from this heavily.
It's interesting because I feel like part of the daring is to have that audience put on music that audience will sit on their hands for, because it's like this is a hip hop performance that where a rapper is performing now, like performing what is contemporary. But I mean, you know, and it wasn't just about that show, right? I mean, of course, politics had had interesting ways of finding its way into the stadium. Of course, I mean, it was in the show in the sense that the way like Kendrick, you know, had the colors of the American flag as part of the aesthetic there. Meanwhile, you know, you had the audience booing Taylor Swift and Donald Trump, who was in the audience, claiming that as a win for MAGA. Matt, how are you making sense of all that?
So I think like the entire kind of political climate of the show, I think for me represents this broader cultural shift that we're in the middle of right now. The entire popular cultural zeitgeist has lurched to the right. That's just a fact. In 2016, I'm not even sure that Kendrick Lamar agrees to do this show. One, because of the NFL's counterinsurgency on Black activism, the relationship to the military-industrial complex and the police, but also the presence of Donald Trump would have likely been prohibitive back then. In 2025, it doesn't seem to be an issue, you know? And like, for me, I think like there is a broader critique of Kendrick Lamar, the artist, and this is something I've maybe talked about a little bit before, but Kendrick has invested a lot of resources in drawing this narrative through line between himself and Tupac Shakur. Like a through line that I believe to be tenuous for all kinds of reasons, but mostly because Kendrick Lamar, the activist, the man, the artist, doesn't seem to have politics that are connected too much outside of himself and his own popularity. And these occasional gestures toward the Black radical tradition. Tupac Shakur, who died at 25 years of age, was the descendant of an organization that went to war with the US government, right? Like a product of the radical tradition that Kendrick Lamar kind of wears every now and then, you know? Kendrick Lamar at 37 years of age is yet to hold a meaningfully dissident opinion or advocate a single position in public that might expose his brand to risk. And I don't think you get to hijack the moral capital of Tupac Shakur's legacy without committing yourself to some of the work and risk, more importantly.
Absolutely.
You know, like, I think performing in front of the most inflammatory, polarizing president in modern American history presented him with an interesting opportunity. And like, you know, he did some things that were compelling, but I'd have liked to see him really relish that. Also, too, if I could just say, like, ultimately, the NFL was comfortable with his gesture towards that radical tradition. Whether they saw it as like harmless or de-radicalized or whatever, what they weren't okay with was the dancer that was seen on the field raising a Sudan and Palestine flag. You know, the dancer that was chased down and arrested by security. That's what risk-taking and meaningful dissent looks like. That's Tupac Shakur's legacy at work, not the artist whose work is sanctioned and approved by NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, but the unknown artist using Kendrick Lamar's stage and the American game as a cipher to advocate for Sudan and Palestine. That's Tupac Shakur's legacy.
I feel that.
And he knew Trump was coming. We all knew this. He was going to be the first sitting president at a Super Bowl game.
And he got up on the GNX.
There was an opportunity there, like Matt was saying, and he did not take it.
Yeah. Pablo, let's tag you in on this. What are your thoughts on that moment?
I agree. I think it's a complete missed opportunity for him. He can't simultaneously stand up here and do these things while also not taking the opportunity to actually like put the dagger in and twist it a little bit.
Yeah.
And I don't think he did. I think it was great for the moment that it was, but at the same time, I think I can hold like this was a cool thing, but it didn't go as far as it needs to go. It didn't do everything it needed to do. Back to your point, I don't think it's Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers bad, but do I think it's up there with Michael Jackson in '93? Absolutely not. Like, I think it's somewhere in the middle, and I'm comfortable with that. But I do think for him to be purporting himself as like this guy, again, he's told us he's not our savior, but for him to be able to put together such a compelling act and then not twist the knife a little bit towards the sitting president that is right there with getting flicked off in the middle of the game as well. I'm like, come on. I do think the guy in the background with the Gaza, Sudan flag standing there was way more powerful in that moment. And that's what I've mainly seen on my timelines anyway, which I'm very happy about.
Yeah.
Kendrick is a hypocrite, man. Just call it what it is, man. That boy's a hypocrite, man.
Hey, he said it though. He's open about that. After he had Kodak on Mr. Morale, he's been open about saying that, and I think people's got to like take him at his word for it. He said
not when he's getting at Drake and calling Drake Mr. Industry. Drake is the only person in his position that's ever spoken out against the industry. It's the reason
but only
has
because
5
it worked
Grammys.
against him, though.
All right.
Only because it worked against him.
He won a Grammy, and he went up there and said, "You don't need this.
This isn't important. After you win, it's such a spit in people's faces."
Let me give the last word to Matt on this. Matt, really quickly, what were you going to say?
So the only thing I was going to say is that it's true. Kendrick is pretty honest about the fact that he is imperfect. He is nobody's hero, but he is somebody that plays both sides of this. And I think my main takeaway is that saying that you're not perfect does not keep you from having to do the work. It does not keep you from the responsibility of having to get better and do better. Yeah. And he seems to believe that just merely admitting that I am immortal keeps him from having to do some of the political education that he cosplays,
Yeah. No, listen, you guys are, y'all are just giving me so much to walk away with as I go back and put this show back on repeat, okay? So, listen, my name's Rad Simonpillai, sitting in for Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This is Commotion. Matt, Amha, Pablo The Don, and Marlon Palmer are all here. We've been talking about last night's Super Bowl, but I want to move on to this story. Take a listen to this. That's a bit of Ja Rule featuring Ashanti with their 2001 pop smash Always on Time. It's just one of the many massive hits produced by Irv Gotti. For those who don't know, Irv Gotti, he co-founded Murder Inc. Records, which was later known as The Inc. Irv Gotti died last week. He was 54. Over the course of his lifetime, Irv Gotti, he had a hand in shaping the careers of Ja Rule and Ashanti and Jennifer Lopez, Jay-Z, and DMX, just to name a few. Pablo, what was your first reaction to the news that Irv Gotti had passed?
I mean, I was shocked, straight up just shocked. I mean, I know he had some health complications last year. He had a stroke and everything, but I was genuinely shocked. This man, whether people want to admit it or not, shaped so much of 90s and 2000s hip hop culture, and we lost a big guy. I mean, from what you said, from DMX to having the idea of introducing Ja Rule and Can I Ghetto with Jay-Z in 99. like Jennifer Lopez, making Jennifer Lopez part of the culture after doing Selena and saying she would never touch music. Yeah. Irv Gotti was behind that, running roughshod over hip hop and R&B at the same time with Ja Rule and Ashanti. Like, he was such a big player in hip hop and part of that transition out of the bling era and into this like kind of lover boy Ja Rule era. And this whole feud with 50 Cent too is just Irv Gotti was that guy. And I'm shocked and I'm saddened.
Yeah, well, I want to latch on to one thing you said, Matt, because, when you talk about Irv Gotti, everyone, I think, associates him with Ja Rule, Ashanti, but like y'all said, like, in a way, like, the success he had with them might not have happened if he hadn't been the one working with the late DMX. So can you talk a little bit about that connection?
Yeah, I mean, I think, he was an instrumental figure early in DMX's career. He A&R'd and helped to bring him to Def Jam, ultimately helped him to produce his first 2 albums, both of which were released in '98, and both of which went #1 on the Billboard charts, making DMX the first rapper to achieve that. So that's this huge keystone moment that Irv was involved with really early on in his career. But I think, Irv was a part of this mandate in hip hop at the time of just like raw authenticity. and he took on DMX, who was this maybe one of the most like ungovernable artists in the history of popular American music, and he kind of accelerated that. DMX represented this experience, this part of American life that the country and labels were scared of. And DMX made sense of it and helped, Irv made sense of it and helped to turn that into this incredible product that we all know and love. If I could just say too, though, like, I think I also mourn Irv's death because of its implications. I'm not sure there's any room in hip hop anymore for Irv Gotti's to exist in a meaningful way. Like these young, insurgent Black and brown people from the bottom of society working as executives and label owners of a culture they created. Like, I'm not sure there's ever going to be another Irv Gotti, Master P, Damon Dash, Birdman. That era in this culture appears to be dead, and that's something that we should mourn.
You don't think TDE is that?
No, because I think ultimately Punch is generations older than the people that he's overseeing. Irv, Damon, Master P, Birdman.
They were all the same.
And just to clarify,
peers.
TDE, like Punch, is the guy that brought out Kendrick. So
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Well, look, like Pablo, speaking to kind of this legacy of Irv Gotti, I mean, I think like you think about him coming out at this time when you got like, Timbaland, the Neptunes, Diddy, all of them putting out a certain type of sound. What made Irv Gotti's, what he did, what made it stand apart?
I mean, truly, I think it's his work with Ja Rule, and I think specifically having Ja Rule stay almost exclusively in this lane of creating hip hop music for women. Yes, you had LL Cool J making I Need Love, you had Mason, you had Biggie making songs where they were talking about how many women they could take down, but Ja Rule, for lack of better words, was pretty much intent on talking about this one woman. It felt like a connective thread. He was talking about his one wife that he's had since 2001, and in all these songs and how much he loved her, and it was truly just like a lover boy vibe where everybody else felt like a playboy. And I think that is the thing that Irv did with Ja Rule masterfully, was make him turn out to be this very soft, tender guy, which also kind of set the groundwork for this beef to make Ja Rule look a little more lame. But at the same time, it made Ja Rule very popular with the women, and he got a lot of women in the clubs, got a lot of men in the clubs. Ja Rule made a lot of money off of just being this exclusive lover boy type of guy. Yeah. And I liked it. And then Ashanti comes in and then makes R&B music that's literally a companion piece to Ja Rule's music. And then Jennifer Lopez pops in, and then suddenly she's cool in the like he was really working the system with this thing. And I think it was cool. And I think, like Matt said, I don't think we'll ever see someone like an Irv Gotti in this culture ever again.
Pablo, I feel like you're making me appreciate something that I was snide about in the past. So I appreciate you for that. Matt, like, I mean, look, earlier we were talking about, the Kendrick, the Drake beef. We got to talk about how Irv Gotti, helped fuel the fire behind one of the longest running rap beefs, the beef between 50 and Ja Rule. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, like, so just to get back to what we were saying before, right? Like, the thing that we refer to as beef today is more like two corporations having an argument with one another. Drake versus Kendrick is like Apple versus Amazon. You know what I mean? Like, but Irv Gotti, Ja Rule, and Murder Inc. versus 50 Cent and G Unit, that for me might be the realest rap beef in history, in addition to Bad Boy and Death Row, in the sense that Irv and 50, these are two young men from the same borough, they're both from Queens. This was this intra-community thing that spilled over into the mainstream. It turned into diamond albums. It turned into platinum records. It was alleged to have some connections to the violent incident that culminated in 50 being shot 9 times. Like, there were violent incidents at award shows. One of hip hop's biggest executives, Jimmy Henchman, went to jail for the rest of his life behind this feud, So it was a central character in kind of the hip hop story through that era, and probably the realest example, of the thing that we now refer to as a rap beef,
Okay, well, Pablo, I mean, really quickly, 30 seconds. Do you have something to add to that conversation?
I mean, yeah, I think that is what it is. Like, that was probably the realest rap beef. It's the realest rap beef we'll ever get. We'll never see anything like this. Now, hip hop has been way too commodified in order for it to ever be as real as that. It's probably going to be a lot more manufactured, and it's unfortunate. And in total, I think that what we saw with Kendrick is just the way of things that rap is going right now, which is saddening. But as an American who's sitting here trying to figure out ways to find some joy, I got to take what I got to take, man.
All right. Well, listen, we got to leave it there. But look, honestly, I wish I had an hour for each of the conversations, y'all, because y'all are just popping out with so much to say, so much for you to think about. But thank you all for joining me for this.
Thank you, man.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having
Thank
us.
you.
So Matt Amha is a writer and culture critic from Toronto. Marlon Palmer is a comedian and co-host of Ace and Marlon in the Morning on Toronto's Flow 98.7 FM. And Pablo The Don is a culture critic and part of Those Wrestling Girls podcast. They're in Springfield, Massachusetts. And that's it for Commotion today. Remember, you can always check us out on YouTube or on Instagram. We're at Commotion CBC. I'm Rad Simonpillai, sitting in for Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This is Commotion.